Hello guys, this is part 97 of ASP.NET video series. In this session, we will discuss about changing password but providing the current password. In fact, in reality, users can change their password anytime by providing their current password. Obviously, for that, they have to be logged in. Okay, so to achieve this, the first thing to do is to write a stored procedure which changes the user password based on their current password. So if you look at the stored procedure, if you look at the stored procedure, that we have here, that I have here, the stored procedure name itself is sp change password using current password. As you can see it here, okay, sp change password using current password. And if you look at this stored procedure, it takes in three input parameters, as you can see here: the username for which we want to change the password, the current password, and the new password to which we want to change. Okay, so three input parameters. Now what are we doing here? This, the TBL user table, as you can see, this TBL user table. So if you look at the user table, it has got a username. It has got a username, okay, and password. And look at this. We are passing in username and current password. Okay, so if the username and current password matches with a row in this table, then for that username, we want to update the password with this new password. Okay, that is coming into the stored procedure. And look at this line here. And look at this line here. This, it exactly what is it doing there? Okay, select ID from TBL user. Select ID from TBL users, where username is equal to at current password. Whatever input parameters that are coming. So if that select query returns something, the exist function will return true. So if that select query returns something, the exist function will return true. Otherwise, it is going to return false. If it returns true, what are we doing? Okay. If it is written true, we know that username and password are correct. username and password are correct. And for that username, and for that username, we want to change the password using this new password. And using this new password, and that is what we are doing here. And that is we are doing here. Update TBL users set password is equal to at new password, where username is equal to at whatever you know the username that comes in that comes in. Okay, whatever username that comes in. And finally, what we are doing, select one as is password changed. One, we will convert that to a boolean value, which gets converted to true, which, which gets converted to true. Okay, so that in case if the username and current password matches with a row in in TBL user table here, if it does not match, then this exist functions. If it does not match, then this exist function will return false. This exist function will return false, and it comes to else block, and it will comes to else block. So when it comes to the else block, all we are doing here is select 0. Select 0 as is password changed, because we are not changing the password. Why? He has provided an invalid or wrong current password for that username. Okay, so that is why we are saying select 0 as is password changed. Okay, so we need to invoke this stored procedure within obviously from within our .NET application. We are going to continue where we left off from the previous session of this video series. Okay, flip to Visual Studio. Means need to go there. So first of all, that I need to do, when I click the save button, I need to call this stored procedure. I need to call this stored procedure sp change password using current password. This stored procedure from our .NET, from our .NET applications. And to do that, if you remember in the previous sessions of this video series, we have written a function, a generic function that execute this stored procedure. If you go down in the changes password.axpx, where is the change password? Here. Not this one. We have to go to the function here. So we have written a function, a generic function that execute this uh, s- stored procedure, as you can see here. All you have to do is provide the name of the stored procedure and the list of parameter parameters or it expects, and if you remember, this stored procedure is expecting three input parameters, and you know that this stored procedure expecting three input parameters, so we need to supply the list of all these three input parameters, supply the list of all these three input parameter. Okay, so I'm going to invoke this functions. Okay, so I'm going to invoke this function, and to invoke this function I have actually written another functions. I have actually written another function here. So let's go ahead and copy the function. So go to the notepad and copy this. These lines of code, lines, coding lines, and go back to your change password.axpx page, and here you need to paste that copied coding lines. So I'm pasting here. So this is the function. And what is this stored procedure is called? This stored procedure is called so what is this stored procedure is called? The stored procedure is called sp change password using current password. Okay. So I'm going to name my functions so accordingly. So I'm going to name my function so accordingly, as you can see here. So I'm going to call this functions private change user password using current password, and those are the parameters, as you can see. Three parameters are there, and look at that, it is very straightforward. It is exactly similar to how we have invoked the other functions like change user password. Okay, like change user password is password reset link valid function. It is very similar to those functions. So So all you are doing here, the first thing is you are creating a list of parameter. So yeah, the first thing is you are creating a list of parameters, object, parameter list. So since that is a list, and since our stored procedure is expecting three input parameter, our stored procedure is expecting three input parameters. We need to pass those three input parameters. So this is the first input parameter. At username is the name of the parameter. So add username, and then most important thing to keep in mind here is how do I get the username, because if you look at the change password, I don't have a text where I ask the user to enter his username, and it does not make sense because the user is already logged in. So we should have an idea about how we can get the logged in username. Okay, now to get the logged in username, you can use user.identity.name here. So we should have an idea about how we can get the logged in username. Okay, now to get the logged in username, you can use user.identity.name and look at this name property. Look at this name property. It is a string property. We have spoken about this in the previous sessions of this video series. When we have discussed about form authentication. Okay, so this user.identity.name will return the username of the logged in user. If the user is already logged in, if the user is not logged in, then user.identity.name, this property will be an empty string. Okay, so that is the key. Okay, that is the key. So we can get the username using user.identity.name. And look at this, keep this point in mind. User.identity.name will be an empty string if the user is not logged in. Okay, so because we will be using that point else where to make some decision. Okay, so that is the first SQL parameter object. And this is this second parameter. This is the second parameter. Second parameter object. So what is the second parameter object? Expecting it expect a current password. It expect a current password. So that what we are passing in here, current password. Here the current password, and again means here we are passing current password, as you can see here in the SQL Server Management Studio. And again since the since the password within the database are hashed, password in the database are hashed, we need to hash them before we actually send it to the database. So that is why we are using this function hash password for storing in config file. So that is we are using this function as password for storing in config file, and we are using SHA1 algorithm to hash it. Okay, so that is current password. So that is current password, and along the same line, new password. And if you remember, new password is coming from text new password dot text box that is present on this page. Okay, so we have all the three. So we have all the three parameter objects that we want. And once we have this list of parameter object, all you have to do is invoke that execute sp function. Invoke that as execute sp function and pass the name of the stored procedure. What is the name of the stored procedure? sp change password using current password that we want to execute. In this case, sp change password using current password, and then the list of parameters object, and this function, and this function is going to return a true or false, which is what is returned by this function in turn here. Okay, this function execute sp is going to return a true or false, which is what is written by this function in turn. So all you have to do right now is make some changes to your page load function and to your button click, because look at it, this page this one page is going to work for both. For reset password link, here the user clicks on that link, it is going to work correctly as well. The user is logged in when they click on change password and click on change password. Link or any page, they should be able to change their password by providing their current password. Okay, so this page is going to serve both the purpose. So let's see how to do that. So we have the method, we have the method which can do that here, that here, but we need to call them appropriately and at the right time. So the changes that we have to do within the page load event, let me copy and paste these changes, and then I will explain what we are doing here within the page load event. Look at that. The first thing means, first of all, we need to go to the page load event here. So we need to copy and paste the coding, go to the notepad, and here is the notepad, and copy this piece of code, not from that, from here, control, and paste it here in the page load event. Okay, so within the page load event, look at the first thing. This is very important line here. Now the user should be able to land on this page, change password page only on 2 occasions. So this is page load event. So this is page load event, and look at what we are going here. The first check if request dot query string of UID is null. If the UID is not present, when the user lands on this page, so what I need to do? I need to do first I need to send the link first. To my email. So I'm sending the link here. Okay. So when the user lands on this page, if the UID, is not present, and also if user dot identity dot name is empty, which means he is an unauthenticated. If this UID is means user dot identity dot name is empty, which means he is an unauthenticated or anonymous user. So if he is an anonymous user and if you don't have UID with the query string of the URL, then there is no business for the user to be on this page. So there is no business for the user to be on this page. So what we are doing, we are actually redirecting the user back to the logging page. Okay, we are redirecting to the logging page if the user identity.name is empty. So he cannot come to change password page. So he cannot come to the come to change password page. Either one of these conditions have to be false. Either one of these conditions have to be false for him to actually change his password. So to change his password, he should either be logged in. He should either be logged in, or if you are not logged in, you forgotten your password, then there should be a UID. Then there should be a UID. You should have a requested for a password reset link to be sent to your registered email address. Okay, so if that is the case, if any of these conditions are true, then the page load continues. This line, okay, that page loads, then the page load continues. This line will not be executed. This line will not be executed. Okay, means if that is the case, if any of these conditions are true, then the page load continue. This line will not be executed. This line will not be executed. So what are we doing here? If request dot query string of ID, if request dot query string ID of ID is not equal to null, if it is not equal to null, then what does that mean? That means UID is present within the URL. So if UID is present within the URL, then we know he is coming to change his password using a password reset link. So if that is the case, so if that is the case, we first check if the password reset link is valid or not. If the password reset link is valid or not. And you know what this function does? We have discussed about this in the previous session. If this function is going to return false, then we know that it is password reset link. That it is password reset link has expired or is invalid. And that is what the message that we are showing here. And look at this. This is most important. tr current password dot visible. tr current password dot visible is equal to false. What is this doing here? What is this doing here? Because we remember uh, because on change password, because we remember on change password page, now we have another text box. On the change password page. We have another text box for the user to enter their current password. To enter their current password, remember, if the user is trying to change their password using a password reset link, they do not provide a current password. So there is no reason for us why this text box in this label should be shown. Okay, so for that purpose, if you look at the HTML here for this table row, so look, if you look at the HTML here for this table row, I have included ID. Here is the current password. Here, I have included the ID. ID is equal to tr current password, and I have included this run at is equal to server. I have included this run at is equal to server attribute, so I can modify the visibility of the table row. So I can modify the visibility of this table row. Okay, within the code behind file. So within the code behind file, I am using using that ID, means tr ID, this ID. And if there is UID, if there is UID within the URL, then I know that the user is trying to change the password using the password reset link. And there is no need for this row to be visible. There is no need for this row to be visible. Okay, means if there is a ID within the URL, then I know that the user is trying to change the password using the password reset link. And there is no need for this tr current password dot visible to be visible. And here I am setting that to false, and here I am setting it to false. On the other hand, if the user dot identity dot name is not equal to empty string, which means the user is logged in. If this condition is false, we will come here and it will check okay. If the user is logged in, we come here and it will check, okay, if the user is logged in. How do we know that if the user dot identity dot name is not empty? The user, we have some sort of username there, which means the user is authenticated. Then show the current row. I mean, then the then show the current row here. I mean tr current password. I mean tr current password. That is the row. So we should show that row which has the text box for him to enter the new password. For him to enter the new password, I mean the current password. Okay. So that is the change within the page load event. So that is the change in the page load event. Along the same line, when I click the save button, along the same line, when I click the save button, here I have to, call the appropriate function to update the password. Okay, to update the password. Okay. So let's look at what are the changes. Now this is again another simple piece of code. It just, need to understand what we need to call when. Within button click event, the change that we have to make is this. So again, go to the notepad and go to the button click event coding, and you need to copy this piece of code and paste it here. Okay, so the change that we have to make is this. So if request dot, look at that, request dot, look at that. So there are two conditions. One is the first one. So that is the first condition. So what is that condition? If the request dot query string of UID is not equal to null. If it is not equal to null, then if this condition is true, only then it will come to this condition. Execute this function. Okay, so if request dot query string of ID, is not equal to null, then we know that the user is trying to change the password using a password reset link, in which case we want to call the change password function. Change user password function. We have discussed about this in the previous session. We have discussed about this in the previous session of this video series. So if you have not watched that, I would suggest you, I would strongly encourage to do so. Okay, so if this condition is true, the first condition, request dot query string of UID not equal to null, then only will it come to this end part, otherwise it will not come to this end part, instead it will check this condition, condition, this condition. Okay, user identity dot name, this one condition here. Okay, so if this condition is a single condition, so if this single condition is false, it will skip this. If this single condition is false, it will skip this change user password function, and it will come here, user dot identity dot name. Okay, if that is not equal to an empty string, that means user is trying to change his password, by providing his current password. He is logged in. Okay, so in which case call this function, change user password using current password. Okay, now if you are thinking this might cause a performance issue, it would not, because if this condition is false, it will skip executing this call. Similarly, if this condition is false, it will execute this function call only if this condition is true. And remember, this sum logic applies here as well. If this condition is true, then it will execute this function call. Okay, so if any of these conditions, so either this condition or this condition or this condition is true, then we know that the user has changed their password successfully, in which case we specified this password changed successfully, else what we are going to do, we are going to display an error message. But we have to show a correct error message. If the user is trying to change a password by providing their current password, then, and if they supply an invalid current password, then we will have to show invalid current password. And how can we determine that? By using the visibility of this row, visibility of this row. If this row is visible, if this row is visible, we know that he is providing the current password to change the password. Okay, and if they have failed to update the password, then that we have to display that message. We have to display that message. Otherwise this message. Okay, so let's build this and see if it is going to work. So come to the SQL Server and select this. I think what happened to it. Okay, so if you look at currently, table reset, password request table, and TBL user table. In TBL reset password request table, I have a valid, what do you say, reset request here. There, and that matches this URL, means you can see 93934. Go to your email ID 93934659659. Okay, so it ends as we have the similar 738, and here you can see the 738. Okay, so they are this similar. So let's go ahead and let me build the application first. Means go back to your Visual Studio and build the Control Shift B. Okay, let me click on this URL. So go back to your email ID and click this URL. It land me to new password. Okay, so when you click at this URL, then you reach to the browser as shown below. So I land on this page. Now, okay, look at that. Change password. Look at that. It is asking me to enter current password. I can go ahead and change my password. So test is the password. When I click save, so password changed successfully. Means I type here test. Test. So password changed successfully. Now look at it. If I try to land on this page, I am not providing UID and I am not logged in. Means if I go here and not provide UID, but it is redirecting me to the change password. But suppose if it's because I'm not providing the UID, that it should be empty string and it should redirect it to me login page, but it is not redirecting to me login page. That means I'm logged in. So if suppose if I am on the login page, then what would happen? So here I land here. That means I was logged in, but now at that time I should be logged out. But I was logged in, so I have not been redirected to the login page. But now I am telling you that if I was not logged in, and then I would have been logged out, redirected to the login page. So I am do it by changing here. Otherwise, that should automatically redirect it to me login page. Okay, so I'm now giving login again. TEST test is the username and test is the password. Login. So I am logging successfully. So if I was not logged out at that time, I was logging at that time. So that that is why that empty UID is redirected me to the change password page. But I manually do it login page here and go back to the login page and again logged in myself using the new password. Okay, so I'm telling you at that point, if I do not give any UID, then I automatically redirected to the login page because of this reason. This is the coding which is the reason for redirecting me to the login page in the page load event. Okay, but I did not specify any UID, but it did not redirect it to me login page. That shows that I was already logged in. So I do it myself going back to the login page. Okay, it happens to many time, but occasionally it does not happen. So what is I'm going to do? I'm going to change password. It's land to me the change password. I click here this link and what I do now, look at that. I landed the change password page and I am here and look at this current password. This is the current password is shown, so I can change my current password to a new password. Okay, so I am providing current password which is test. Current password is test, TEST test, and my new password is take it as test3, TEST3, confirm TEST3, click save. So password changed successfully. Now let me try to change it back to test 1. So I provide my current password, but let me provide an invalid current password. I give an invalid current password, TEST test, anything I can give, and new password. Okay, and I try to click this save. Look at that look at that invalid current password. It gives the error message, also a meaningful error message. Okay, and on the other hand, look at that, I try to click on this link again. I tried to click on this link. Okay, I try to click on this link again. Where is the link? So if you remember, this link is not a valid link anymore, because why I changed my password once, so that is gone there. We don't have recent an entry in TBL. If I come here and execute again, so you can see in the TBL reset password request, there is no entry here, as you can see here. So obviously, now when I click this link, which I have already clicked, I have clicked this link and see the result. When the page load up, look at that, password reset link has expired or is invalid. Now I am trying to change the password in spite of the link having expired, and I click save. Look at that, what is going to happen. Means if I change the, trying to change the password in spite of the link having expired, and I click the save, look at what is going on. Password reset link has expired. So in spite change my new password and giving new password, it is showing the password reset link has expired, invalid. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.